Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, Jay Goltz and William Vanderbloemen talk about what it takes in the throes of an unprecedented labor shortage to hold on to your best people, the ones whose departures might send you looking for a trash can. They also discuss whether hire slow still works, whether it's a good idea to rehire a former employee, whether it's still possible to do a meaningful reference check, how to use 360 reviews and personality tests, and finally, whether Jay and William would be ready to sell their business if someone were to come along and offer them twice what they think it's worth. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which highlights the most important news of the day for business owners and which you can subscribe to at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home, and William Vanderbloemen, who is CEO of Vanderbloemen Search Group, a recruiting firm based in Houston that works with churches and other faith-based organizations. The episode is titled The Vomit List. Welcome, Jay and William. It's great to have you here. William, we haven't spoken in a while. How are you? What's going on?
Oh, it's just been a regular year, nothing. Oh, wait, there's been a great resignation. I called this great resignation or COVID job churn or whatever.
I think you called it the COVID turnover, William.
Yeah, about a year ago.
Almost exactly to the day. And by the way, I think that's a better name than the Great Resignation. It's really about turnover. People aren't just resigning and, leaving work.
Yeah. Well, I called it and was bracing for, a big rush of churn in terms of jobs we were being asked to do, candidates coming through our door, that sort of thing. I failed to consider that it might actually happen to me. And so we've had our own version of musical chairs this year, but we're coming out on the other side really, really well. So here's a lesson, Lauren. Here's one of the lessons I learned in the pandemic. As a small business owner, if every one of your clients has to close indefinitely, it will change your year, right? Right. So 2020 was the first year ever that we haven't grown. In fact, we shrunk some, and less than I thought we would. But our goal for this year has been to be within 5 to 10 percentage points of 2019, which was our record year ever. And as it stands today, we're actually a little ahead of 2019 with fewer people on payroll. And so, a lot of churn even in our own house. But I think we're coming out on the other side stronger, more efficient, more productive. And, we've got some new team members that have really added a lot. So I try and tell our clients, anytime somebody leaves, it's not a chance to replace. It's a chance to ratchet up. And we're in the middle of doing that ourselves. So it's been a fun year. I have not worked this hard in a long, long time.
Where do you think we are now, William? What do you expect in the coming year?
More of the same. Whoever's shaking the tree, they're not finished yet. And some of that is going to be more of the same dynamics. One that I did not foresee a year ago that I think is an aggravating factor that's going to prolong this job churn is inflation. And what I mean when I say that, well, depending on where you are in the country, you're going to have to pay your people 4 to 7% more next year just to match the wages of this year. And not everybody's going to do that. And that's going to lead to some more churn.
Very, very smart. That is true. See, I would call the metaphor differently. I would say the shaking of the tree is continuing, but most of the loose fruit already fell out. So I don't think I'm going to have a lot. I only had really one that I didn't want to leave. So, but you're correct. I believe we're ratcheting up the cost of living increase, and some people probably aren't, and that's gonna continue the shaking for some other people. And but I would also say it's changed the environment in that there's some people that worked to me for years that were like, they needed to move on. They were at the end of the thing. They were already kind of stressed out, and this just put them over the edge. And so I did lose a few like that. But to your other point, I got to tell you, I hired some great people. And I wish, people like to pick on the millennials. You know what? There's still some lovely, wonderful, hardworking, well-adjusted millennials out there. Plenty of them. And I hired some of them. So I know for a fact that's true. Is it harder now? Yes. Yes, for sure it's harder now.
William, what's changed about hiring? One of the things you used to hear constantly was hire slow and fire fast. But is hire slow still a thing?
Well, I think hire thoroughly might be the way I'd say it right now, because there is a little bit more time under the gun. I mean, it's like, if you buy a home, you ought to buy it carefully. Well, I don't know how your market is, but here in Houston, if you see a house you want, you better put an offer in right then and hope you don't get overbid.
That's what Paul Downs said to us about hiring people at his shop. He was asking them what they wanted, and if he liked someone, and offering them more and trying to get them to sign before they left the room.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd go as far as Paul, but I'm not as smart as Paul. I will say I actually got through to one of my teenagers with a line the other day, and it's an old line, but I thought, wow, if this gets through to a teenager, it might actually be worth repeating. And I just said to this teenager, hey, if you don't have time to do it right, you really don't have time to do it twice.
That makes sense. Do you think people, by and large, are adhering to that? My guess is they aren't.
No, I think it's quite the opposite. And I think it's going to mean guys that are running search firms are going to be busy again in 2 or 3 years when a lot of hires get fired or leave. The number one mistake that I see in staffing or HR or search, whatever you want to call it, is people hire too quickly and they fire too slowly. The nice way we say it is you should have long hellos and short goodbyes. The classic mistake when people are not under pressure is to hire quickly. Now they're under pressure. They're reading a lot of headlines telling them, you better grab somebody good and hang on to them and pay them more. And I think it's going to make people who were already prone to rush all the more rushed.
I think we're letting people off the hook too easily to say they're hiring too fast. No, they're hiring stupid. And there's a difference. Like, okay, call the people back quicker, call the references quicker, move quicker. I got all that. But I still see people hiring without checking references. And I'm sorry, but I just have found that to be a disaster. And yes, I would agree with someone. 90% of the time, it's a waste of time to call references. They're just going to give, okay, fair enough. Maybe it's 80%. But for the 20% that it makes a difference is the world. Like it's going to take up so much of your time for that one bad hire that it's worth calling all the references. So I don't even think it's about fast or slow. I think it's about naivety and, what am I going to bother? Call the reference.
Well, I don't think it's just naivete. I think it's also what William said, comparing it to the housing market. People feel like they just have to move. And I'm sure there's some people out there who are thinking, you know what, I need people. I'm just going to hire them. And if it doesn't work out, I'll figure it out quickly and I will fire fast. Don't you think people are doing that?
But Jay, I totally agree with you. Let's call it the standard issue reference calls.
Yeah.
They're worth nothing. I mean, everybody lists their mother as a reference, and never their mother-in-law.
No, how about the companies they hire to do the reference checking that ask you nothing, that couldn't care less? They just want to get the thing done.
You can thank lawyers and a litigious society for that. But I will say we're finding some new ways, some new things we're exploring with reference checks because, you can only ask how long did they work here and you can't ask about behavior. There's so much off limits.
Wait. I got to challenge that. I don't know that that's true what you just said. What do you mean you can't ask? You can ask. The question is maybe they can't answer, but you can ask. Correct?
True. State by state, there are varying rules on what someone can say when they're asked a question. That's exactly right. What I think I'm finding is, it's on you to do background, to do criminal, to do or hire somebody to do it. We do it all the time for people. When we're not doing a search, we'll do the background reference. But when you do background reference, we require a credit check, and some people don't like that, but it's legal to ask for it. And I think it shows how people manage their own house. And if they can't manage that.
Here's a new problem as of this morning. My HR person literally this morning said, Jay, I'm going to have a problem if we hire. It's taking me 2 weeks to get those checks back. Like those, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, and you're beholden to whatever the references will or won't do. So I just tell the candidate, I'm not going to be able to make an offer until I get these references. So you might text them or give them a heads up that I need to have a phone call with them. And that's the only way I know to push it along. But then another thing that we're exploring is if you don't run a social media check, you should. And you can run a really, really thorough one. And it's just, it might show you some things that are helpful to your discernment. And I know a reference call is like, the last firewall before you make the offer, but you might see things that are worth noting.
I had one lady tell me when I had a store in New York a few years ago, I did a pop-up and I knew it was critical. I didn't make a mistake because I'm not there. This guy got a letter from his boss saying how wonderful he was. I called her. Within 30 seconds, she told me she had to fire him because he couldn't get along with anyone else. 30 seconds, she told me this.
Let's go back to the social media thing. I'm really intrigued by that. Jay, does your process include checking a candidate's social media?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is some controversy about that, William. I've read some articles from quote unquote experts saying that it's not a good idea to do that because it's very likely that you will run into information that you're not supposed to have about a candidate. How do you think about that?
I'd hire a firm to do it for me.
Wait, Lauren, walk us through that. What would that information be that we shouldn't know about?
William, help me here. Their age, whatever your questions that you're not allowed to directly ask a candidate will likely turn up in social media.
We ask them to sign a release allowing us to do a social media scrub. So they know it's coming. And if you want to hide your birthday, you can hide your birthday.
People put stuff online that you think to yourself, oh my God, why would you go put that online? But they do.
For us, it's nearly all of our clients that we're hiring a very public-facing person, whether that's a CEO or a head of school or a head pastor, and how they present themselves publicly in the social media sphere is pretty salient to whether or not we need to hire them, even down to silly things. Like we have some clients where part of their behavioral covenant for employment is you're not going to drink. Like it's just for whatever reason, they've got a belief thing, whatever. Well, then why is your social media full of you knocking back cocktails at 10 a.m.? And you can find that out. We can actually filter for, is there alcohol in a picture that the person liked? It's frightening.
And when you say the word scrub, that even sounds aggressive to me. I'm suggesting you don't have to scrub anything. You put their name in and the whole thing comes right up there. And if they think it's okay to put all that stuff out there, that was their choice. So we're supposed to ignore that it's out there, that the person that just told you they don't drink has got pictures of 12 bars they're in. I mean, they put it on there.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. You're talking about go to their page and take a look. I'm talking about a scrub where everything they've liked, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, wow, Instagram, I get about 100-page report on, and I don't even share the whole thing with our client because they wouldn't hire anybody.
That's news to me. That one makes me squirm a little bit, but okay, I understand. That's different than what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about going out there to see what they put out there.
I think the other thing with reference calls that I'm shifting when I do my own reference calls to two things. Jay, I'm calling you about Lauren. It's a reference call. You and I both know reference calls happen at the end of hiring. I'm probably not calling you unless I'm going to hire him. So rather than go through is he a good guy or not, why don't you tell me, if you were in my chair, how would you steward the time I'm going to have working with Lauren? What do I need to know to maximize that time? And then you get some answers that are really good. Like, well, that's a great question. Now, he's just going to get a lot done, but you're going to have to tell him every now and then, no means no. Like he'll keep asking over and over whether he can ask you something on the podcast and you say no. He keeps asking. You say no. Well, that's helpful to know going into the thing. So, another question that I'll ask, I'll say, Jay, probably going to hire him. When you worked with Lauren, how did his presence in the workplace affect your culture? Not just positive or negative, but like what changed? Oh, everybody loves Lauren. They love getting along with him. People like being on projects with him. Well, that's really helpful, right? Or, man, he was productive, and that his productivity allowed us to overlook the fact that he was a little awkward, or he was, and I think you can start to get at some things by approaching how do they affect us culturally. And if you were me and hiring him, what would you want to know going in?
I ask one major question, which is, are they eligible for rehire? And I'm
That's
telling
a great
you,
question.
I've learned that even though they've got lawyers all over them and they say don't say anything negative, I've learned that people will not let those words come out of their mouth. They can't. They just can't say yes if they wouldn't. So I've never found somebody.
Wait, they can't say yes to what question?
Are they eligible to rehire? Even if they've got a room of 12 lawyers screaming at them, say yes, they can't.
There might be a rule at the company.
I got the answer to that. This is like playing chess. They say, no, that's against our company policy. So then I say, what if it wasn't against your company policy? And then you get the long silence. Like, they are not going to lie for this person, I have found. They are not going to have the words come out of their mouth. Yes, that I would rehire them if they left under some bad terms. I have never met a human being that will allow those words to come out of their mouth. So I find that very helpful, that they're not going to lie for them. And then they have a long silence. And then I say, wow, sounds like you're struggling for an answer like I would if I fired somebody and I really didn't want to stick my neck out.
Are personality tests still a thing, or is that too much trouble at a time like this?
I used to use them. They were very helpful. I haven't used them in years.
Why'd you stop if they were so helpful?
I'll tell you why. 2008 happened. The world fell apart and I wasn't hiring anybody and I just saved some money and I stopped using them. But should I use them? Is it a good idea? I think that I would say this I think I know for a fact. Some of them are great and some of them are worthless. So I think the ones that are great, yeah, they're probably worth doing, but I just haven't done it because we seem to be doing okay without it. And I do have a problem with this. I'm a little uncomfortable making someone sit down and spend 40 minutes filling out a personality test, and then you don't hire them and you're in that awkward position of, well, was it the test?
What do you think of them, William?
Well, I think that, first of all, you be really careful legally not to use or appear to use a personality profile as a litmus test for hiring. Some of them are fine. Others, in some states, it's like you can't do that. The legal rationale is it's like asking the person applying for a flight attendant job to step on the scale. They can't change what they weigh. It is who they are, and you're discriminating. So be careful, first of all. Secondly, I just wouldn't use them as a hiring mechanism. I think it's super helpful for onboarding, super helpful for team communication, but some of the best hires I've made were not what I would have expected on a DISC inventory or what have you. Now, we make everybody go through. Right now, we just use DISC because it's quick and it's cheap and it's pretty thorough. And you're going to do that no matter where you are in the process. So, it's not I got all the way down to the end. They made me take this test and then they didn't hire me. So we're kind of covering ourselves there. But I think they're far more helpful for onboarding and for team communication than they are for discerning who to hire. And let me just say with that, hiring's a scary thing. It's an anxious task. And my experience, 13 years of doing this and 2,500 searches, is people want a smoking gun to say, yes, we should hire him. No, we shouldn't. Some test, some inventory, something that will make the decision for them so they get out of the anxiety of having to make basically a discernment call, which is at the end of the day what hiring's about.
Now, you said something that I find funny. You said that the government or a state could say that, oh, that's discriminatory. They can't change who they are. What if they're a total jerk? Is that discriminating?
I don't know the personality profile that asks if they're a jerk or not.
Well, but you can tell. No, I've had some. They go from 0 to 10. Where do they fit on the scale of empathy? And some people get 1s. I mean, that's the problem. And I when I used to use them, I learned watch out for the ones that peg the needle either at 10 or 1. But I agree with you. There's probably some true discriminatory things in there based on all the things that are protected. It certainly is going to tell you sometimes that this is not going to be a good employee. I don't think you can call that discrimination. I think that's what you call discerning. I don't want to hire someone that's not going to be outgoing if they're a salesperson. And those tests from when I took them years and years ago, some of them I took, they were amazingly on the money. But I also, on the same page with you, I'm not really comfortable using them at this stage, though. We've gotten much better at hiring. If I wasn't much better at hiring, maybe I would tell someone, maybe you should use those. So it's tricky, though.
A few weeks ago on the podcast, Jay, I think you were there. The topic of hiring rebound employees came up, bringing people back. And Jay, I think you'd had a good experience with one.
Wait, I need to stop you. The truck driver guy quit. He wasn't making enough money. I said, you should have talked to us, blah, blah, blah. He comes back 2 weeks later. He went to a crummy job. We fixed the pay thing. It was all good. He just quit again last week. Gave us 1 week notice.
How long was he back?
He was back since February, and they offered him $3,000 signing bonus. And this is a horrible company he went to. And he did the same thing all over again. I go, gee, you couldn't give us more than a week's notice? It's holiday season. Well, they really wanted me there. Okay. And this is fresh. I had to think about this for the next 2 days. So I thought, what if he wanted to come back again? And my new conclusion is bringing somebody back the first time, I would call gracious and smart. Taking him back the second time, you're probably a sap, and you look bad to the rest of the employees. And I believe if he shows up again and wants his job back, I think I'm going to have to say no.
But you're not sure.
I'm not totally sure. It depends on whether it's tomorrow or whether it's in 2 months from now. But I'm not happy that he only gave me 1 week's notice. Really, I mean, that was just not right. And we always treated him well. I gave him Cub tickets every year to take his family. It's kind of, I'm not mad at him. I'm certainly disappointed, though.
What do you think about rebound employees, William?
Well, Gail, my exec assistant, I just hired for the 5th time.
They say 5th time's the charm.
I feel like Johnny Carson or something, like how many times have y'all been together? 5 now, But she moved one time. Her husband's job took her away, so she left. And then we hired her again. And then she had a baby and was going to be a mom full time. And then we hired her again. And then same thing with the second child. And when we hired her again. And then I laid her off when we cut back last year. And
all right, that doesn't count. She didn't quit. She had good reasons to quit.
I fired her. Why would she come back? I kind of wondered if she'd still like me.
Take your call. You wondered if she'd even take the call.
Exactly.
I did a speech to some business owners about, sometimes you have to fire people and blah, blah, blah. And this guy comes up to me afterward and he goes, I have to tell you, I used to work for a big printing company, and we bought a company in Chicago that had 150 employees, and we did the math and we realized they got too many employees. They should only have 120. They put me on a plane and said, go to Chicago and you need to fire 30 people. So I come to Chicago. I don't know what to do. So the first day, everybody that was late, I fired that day. That was easy, day 1. Okay, now it's day 2. He's just randomly firing people. So he calls Maureen in and says, Maureen, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to lay you off. She goes, wow, I'm surprised. Can I just ask you one favor? He says, what? She says, when you hire me back, I want you to double my salary. So he thinks, yeah, sure. I mean, he laughs to himself. How arrogant is that? So she leaves. He's tired from firing people, so he decides to go back into the production area. He goes back to production, and he says to the guy in charge, he goes, how many orders do we have going through this week? And he says, I don't know. You're going to have to talk to Maureen. I just fired Maureen. You fired Maureen? She's the only person here that knows where all the orders are. He hired her back and doubled her salary. It's a true story, according to this guy. So, yeah, people do come back.
Well, these are different times. William, you gave us one kind of exceptional situation. In general, do you think hiring rebounds is problematic, a good idea?
I mean, I think it depends on why they left. I've had people who left because their career progressed. Like our Holly, who you both know, I hired her when she was 23 or something, and she stayed 9 years, did an amazing job as our chief marketing business development person, and she outgrew us. She's at a much bigger company now, got a bigger job. I'd kind of wonder why do you want to come back? I'm going to have to ask a question about that. I trust her, love her work, love working alongside her, but kind of wonder, I don't know. Have y'all seen Pet Sematary?
I don't think so.
No.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you can't bring them back all the time. Sometimes bringing them back doesn't work. That's the bottom line. There are other times where, Gail, each time there was a life circumstance and then it passed and I convinced her to come back to work and it's been wonderful. We've had other cases, I won't name names, but where the company outgrew their ability and they did a great job, but we needed a higher capacity person and we helped transition them out well. And unless they're coming back to a different job that fits their capacity, I don't know, even if I like working with them, if it's worth it. Why did I bring Gail back again? I love working with her. I trust her. She's my sister from another mister. She's, all that. But she has been a part of our culture when it has been at its very best and has institutional knowledge. And we've got a lot of new people after COVID churn hit us. And more than anything, I said, Gail, I'm paying you to be my assistant. But honestly, if I need something done, just say, William, you deal with it. I'm going to go work on culture out there and I'm going to mentor some of these younger, newer employees. So there are times where bringing somebody back has enormous value, not just in their work output, but their cultural influence.
With the labor market so tight, has that affected the way you manage people?
It's affected the way I'm paying people next year for sure. And it's more, it's a tight labor market and inflation. I've done a couple retention bonuses early in the pandemic. So Lauren, you're a key player here. We're about to go through a really tough year and a half, right? Or let's call it a year. And, we don't really do bonuses, but I'm going to bonus you a year from now. I'm going to give you an extra, I don't know what, give you $10,000 or whatever the number is, right?
If I stay.
By the way, it's a bonus you're going to get in a year, but actually, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you now, okay? Now, I want you to think about this before you say yes, because I'm also going to have you sign a piece of paper that says, I'm accepting this bonus in advance, and if I leave the company for an unfireable offense between now and a year from now, I'll pay this back with interest.
Do people sign that?
I had one not, and two did.
Wait, did you give this to everybody?
No.
How does that work?
Well, I probably shouldn't say it on a podcast. If my whole office listens to it, they're going to go, wow, I wasn't on the list.
That's what I'm thinking.
So I had a friend who used to say, you need to keep a vomit list. So I said, what's a vomit list? He said, it's a very short list. It's probably no more than 3 people that if they walked into your office and said, can I have a minute at the end of the day? And you know what that talk is. That's right. You before you even let them sit down, you're looking for a trash can because you're going to throw up.
Yeah.
Right. And if you frame it that way, I've yet to meet a team leader who can't immediately name the 2 or 3 people. And it's not always the 2 or 3 best paid people. It's like, I get a church that's going through a building campaign, and for them, their finance director for the next 8 months is a very important role that they don't want to have to train somebody new. And so it's that, or for sometimes it's an admin person that you can leave in a year, but for right now through this tough season, I got to have you around and I'll pay you a bonus in advance. And of course you need to give them time to, I give them a week. You think about it. If you don't want to sign it, no harm, no foul. I get it. Life changes. You might have something else going on, but it's yours if you want it.
All I can say is, wow. I just don't know. Yeah, wow.
Well, if those really are employees who are that crucial to you, I would think if other employees found out about it, that's a defensible situation.
Oh, my God.
It was for the good of the company, Lauren.
Seriously, Lauren? You think the average person's going to feel okay about that?
Well, this is what I said. I assume that no meeting is actually private. Word's going to leak out. How are you not going to tell a friend or a coworker or whatever? So I just said, listen, I like you. You're great for the team. You do good work. I like working with you, but this bonus has more to do with protecting the company while we're in a very vulnerable season. Your role during this next year is super critical to the whole team. And for the good of the team and everyone that works here, I'm making this offer to you, and I don't even tell them if I do it with anybody else.
So you really can't be sure whether anyone else heard about it and they're pissed about it.
No, you can't.
William, what happened with the person who refused to sign? Did you give the bonus anyway?
No. And they had a job offer within 3 months and left, and they're in a great situation. It really stunk to lose them, and they weren't our highest paid person. But
did you know that day that they were on their way out?
I think they probably knew, yeah.
No, did you know?
No, but I did after they didn't sign it.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
And the flip side of that, I have a good friend who is a partner at one of the best management consulting firms there is, and they do this with their compensation. And, if they don't sign, then I know I better be preparing for the day that I do have that meeting and I need my trash can.
You know what I have to say? I'm obviously not in the management consulting business. I'm not in the high-tech business. I have to say I'm proud and appreciative of the fact that I have had almost no one leave in 43 years. The people that I would vomit, they're still here, and I feel good about that.
That's great.
My graphic designer left years ago. She was great, but I was a little naive. There's no way if you hire a great graphic designer that she's not working in New York at a big magazine. I couldn't hold on to that, but
sure.
I feel great. She sent me a note one time, not long ago. She said, Jay, you didn't realize it, but you were running. I can sit there in a room full of suits and hold my own because of you. And I've never been prouder of a comment to me that she said, you didn't know it, but you were running a women's empowerment zone there. But other than her, I can't think of anybody who left that it was like, oh my God, but I'm sure it will happen eventually.
Well, I think it changes for me season to season. Like there are times where, at close of the year, operations is, as an S corp, when you got to zero everything out and figure out budget for the next year and pay, like that's a 90-day window that, oh boy, I really need those people then. January is usually a mad rush. Our clients feel like it's January, so we have new money, a new budget, whatever that means. So they go higher, and so salespeople are incredibly important, and they're always important. All of my people are always important, but there's zones of the calendar where different types of people are mission critical for a window of time. And that sounds cold, but I think it's really trying to protect the rest of the team.
You know what? I could see, because I'm mostly a retailer, I could see if your business was built on having outside salespeople, I could see a situation where the rest of the employees would understand if you said, listen, it's a competitive market out there. We need the sales to keep coming in. And if they heard about it, I could see where they would swallow hard, but they already have to because they know the salespeople make more money than them anyway. It's always a problem. But I always say to them, well, I could fire so-and-so, but I'll have to fire you the next day because we'll have no business. I mean, it is a problem. And I've had to live on both sides of the world of being a retailer my whole life and then understanding the dynamics of running an outside sales organization, which is 180 degrees different. I mean, you need the salespeople to bring in business.
William, here's something else that came up recently I wanted to ask you about. We talked about the idea of giving employees a 360 review, and Jay in particular was very uncomfortable.
Cringing was the word I used. I cringe.
Yeah, of asking employees, what they thought of other employees. I'm curious what you think. Do you have a strong feeling about 360s?
I turned 50 the year before last, and I had a whole new kind of physical that year. And it reminded me of 360s.
Yeah. And was that enjoyable?
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I don't remember much of it.
Who wants to know that someone's going around saying, hey, what do you think of William? And I just think it's certainly if there's a problem, I deal with it. Absolutely. But to go ahead and look for trouble and start quizzing people, what do you think? I just find that to be extremely uncomfortable and not productive as far as I'm concerned.
I'll tell you where it has come in a lot more handy. I know they're necessary. I know they're good. They're just not much fun. But in interviewing, I am a 100% fan of 360 interviewing.
Absolutely. Or if there's a problem, I'm all for it. If there's a problem, to go find out how bad's the problem and go talking to other people, I'm all for that. But to just go do it without any reason in particular.
William, when you say they're not much fun, are you talking about doing a 360 review of yourself?
Yes. Receiving the results of your 360.
Well, what about, how do you view it in terms of your employees? Do you do 360 reviews of them?
We don't. Maybe we should. I think the closest we get to that is, like best places to work or culture surveys. We do them. We administer them for clients all the time. So we self-administer one each year. And invariably, there'll be anonymous comments about this department, that leader. But that's not the same thing you're asking.
That's where I have a problem. I don't believe in anonymous anything. I believe I have a corporate culture. Like, if they want to do it anonymously, keep it. I believe, say something to your manager, trust that they'll take care of it, trust that you can have a conversation. And I know by no means do I think people should live in a bubble. I have developed a culture here that I know works because people will tell me if they think I did something wrong. They tell me right to my face, and I appreciate it and I thank them. So I don't think you need that. I'll just say for myself, I don't want to say it to anyone else. In my particular case, I believe I'm running a healthy organization that if somebody's doing something that's not right, someone's going to speak up about it and we will address it. I do not see a value. I could see it being counterproductive to go out.
But you've been surprised a few times.
Absolutely, that people said something. Sure, absolutely. But they do say something, yeah. I mean, most people are not going to come to the boss's office. But I find that if you go down there and talk to them in their workstation or the truth chamber, the car, driving to a dinner together, driving to anywhere, they'll tell you stuff in the car they would have never in a million years told you sitting in an office. So I found there's ways of finding out stuff. Just go talk to people. You know, that whole management by wandering around. I found that works. You go talk to people. They'll tell you if you ask them if you think there's a problem.
William, I can't let this go without asking, did you learn anything interesting about yourself when you had that awful process of the 360?
I have to go back in 5 years.
No, come on.
He's blocked it out. He's got PTSD from it, and now you're bringing up all that stuff. Leave him alone.
I think it was an old Plato quote. The greater part of instruction is being reminded of the things you already know. So I think the older I get, the more I'm like, dang it, am I still making that mistake? Or you know, I'm going too fast, or just the things that I've heard. I'm not getting a lot of surprises, put it that way.
As someone who's older than you, I can tell you that I've accepted that I do some stuff that's wrong and I'm trying to improve it. I'm always trying to improve it. So I accept if somebody tells me something, okay. And the part that changed my life is simply the revelation of I'm somewhat obsessive, and I've come to the conclusion I'm just not going to be perfect. I get it. And I'm going to try. I'm going to absolutely continue to try, but I have accepted that I'm going to screw some stuff up and it's okay. Because if you don't do that, you will torture yourself, and it's not healthy.
Jay, that reminds me, you told us at the beginning of this year that your goal for this year was not to do anything stupid. How'd you do?
Wow. You know what? I'm happy to say I feel really good about. I've had some very difficult management stuff I've had to work through, and I think we've done a very good job with it. I would say I've done well with that. I think I've learned from the past, and I think I've done very well with that. Now, do you want me to give you my wife's number and call her up and see if...
I've got it, Jay.
I was going to say, Jay, you know, my morning prayer, it's not original, but was, Lord, thank you so much that I've just had a good day, and I've treated people well, and I've been honoring, and I've been productive. Thank you so much for this day that it has just gone without flaw. But I'm about to get out of bed.
Yeah, no, I don't want to brag, but I think I've made every single mistake you can possibly make in business, and I've learned from it. And so, yeah, I think I still got a few weeks to screw up now. You put some pressure on me, but so far, I think I've done well this year.
All right. We're almost out of time. And this is the last one we're going to take this year. So I want to ask you both the same question I asked you both last year, just as a way to kind of gauge what your mindset is. If somebody were to come along right now and offer you twice what you think your business is worth, would you be tempted to sell? William?
Well, everybody thinks their business is worth more than it is. So it'd be a big number. I don't know. I think I'd have to drop back and say, but then what would I do? Because you can only play so much golf. I'm doing something now. I try and advise candidates. I say, here's the thing. And I tell my kids this too. If you can find something that you're good at, right, that's needed, that leaves the world better than you found it, and that you enjoy doing, there's your perfect job. You get all four of those to overlap. There are very few jobs that do that. Hopefully, I've got a fair amount of time left in a career. I don't know what that job would be, because right now I'm doing something that I've had some modicum of of good fortune with. It is desperately needed to our clients. I do think it's leaving the world better than I found it, and I enjoy it. So it's hard for me to imagine what I'd do with my time. If I felt like this is a once-in-a-lifetime shot, I can secure the future of my grandchildren, and then I can figure out some nonprofit to go run. I mean, there's always room to think, but it would have to be a pretty special offer.
So you didn't quite say no.
That's right.
All right, let me help. I'm going to say no because I've realized that I never thought there was a phrase like this, but I have enough money in that if I got all this money, I don't know what I would do with it, and I would not be happy watching them destroy the company because I'm confident they would, and I feel like I owe it to my 130 employees to not do that. So I believe I would think about it for 10 seconds, but no, I don't believe I would do it because I like going to work every day. I like my employees, and I feel good about what I'm doing, and I'm happy that I'm in a situation that I could afford to turn that down.
All right. My thanks to Jay Goltz and William Vanderbloemen for this conversation and for many conversations this year. As always, really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing, guys. Wait. Don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN@21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.